You are listening to NFL Team Breakdowns on the National Sports Radio Station and on Spreaker.com.
Yeah, I'm the only one to get the job done. I don't know if you can cover for me. Yeah, got some game from my day. So she might say she love me, she don't love me like she say she love me. Believe me. I didn't know boy they love me in the street. I'm not trying to find nobody else to be. I know one they couldn't see because they are. Believe me. Yeah. Real. It's been me and Young Tune off the rip.
Hello everyone, welcome into NFL Team Breakdowns. Robert Dieters alongside me and Nick Rice, and we're going to be covering the New England Patriots. Nick, they went to the conference finals in the AFC, but lost to the Denver Broncos 26-16. Gotta say, pretty disappointing. Shane Vereen only got 34 rushing yards. Julian Edelman only 89 yards receiving. Tom Brady threw for over 250 yards that game, but Nick, I gotta say, when you look at it, this team is still pretty dominant. I mean, they went 12-4 last season. And Nick, they lost to Cincinnati, New York, Carolina, and Miami. They lost the three teams that they should have beat, and lost one team you could say that has a pretty tough defense. But the New England Patriots are a team that are supposed to be favored to go to the Super Bowl this year. In my prediction, I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. And Nick, it's probably going to be for you too, because I know you've been talking about the New England Patriots a lot, but what do you have to say about the 2013 campaign and how do they move on?
Yeah, personally, I think the New England Patriots are the best team out of the AFC. When you take a look from the starters to even the backup players, I mean, we're talking about an entire JV roster, except for Tom Brady, that was on the field for the conference championship game. They had Vince Wilfork out. I believe they had Hightower out. They had a number of defensive studs out of the game. And now you throw in some free agent acquisitions to go along with guys that will be healthy for the season. And you have yourself a serious contending team for the Super Bowl right here, right now. Obviously, having Tom Brady is a huge plus. It will definitely help their cause in a huge way. But as we get going here with the New England Patriots, expect for this team to be one of the best coming out of the the conference, and expect a first-round bye for one of the better teams over the last decade.
And Nick, this team last year wasn't very good against running backs. Their defense couldn't really stop the run. And Nick, this was a top 10 offense. You could say 10th in passing, 9th in rushing. Not too bad. Tom Brady really struggled with. Well, he didn't struggle. I'm not trying to say that, but he did not have a very strong wide receiver core. But they really came up big. We got Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola was hurt during the season. Gronk was hurt during the season. Kenbrell Tompkins had to come up huge, but Julian Edelman, he had 105 receptions, was targeted 151 times last season, and Danny Amendola was actually targeted 83 times. So, Nick, I gotta say, Julian Edelman really had to carry that load, and the wide receiver core had 6 touchdowns last season.
Julian Edelman is one of those under-the-radar caliber players, similar to what Wes Welker was. I mean, he just makes Tom Brady, just like Tom Brady makes these receivers. I mean, if there's only one thing that Brady demands, it's a great slot receiving caliber player. Edelman had, I can't even believe this, he had over 1,000 yards in receiving, over 10 yards a catch off of 105 receptions. Many people targeted Danny Amendola as being the guy that would replace, at least a little bit, fill the shoes of Wes Welker. But it's Edelman who has stepped up in a big way, and now the Patriots have themselves a real receiving core now. As you take a look at the depth chart here for this 2014 team, Danny Amendola comes back. He was hurt, to no surprise. He's seemingly been hurt about every year. But you throw in a Brandon LaFell, a free agent acquisition from Carolina, and also a Kenbrell Tompkins and a Josh Boyce, who you could expect to be better in the progression from years 1 to 2. and also some rookies that you throw in the mix, Wilson Van Hoosier and a Derek Johnson, and you have yourself not a great receiving core, but a viable one, and certainly more talented than last year.
I'm hoping a lot from Danny Amendola this year. You know, he had some injury problems, but I think he can bounce back and really help out with Julian Edelman. I think those two could potentially become a 1-2 punch. And Danny Amendola was supposed to be the number one guy for this squad, but he got hurt. Julian Edelman really stepped up. Tom Brady made him look good. And also Aaron Dobson, I think this guy can have a way better season. And, you know, just coming into his second year, it's, you know, going into his sophomore year, we talk about all these rookies, Nick. I love talking about all these rookies and how they're going to, I think, improve in their sophomore year. Their sophomore year is like you either have that sophomore slump or you rise. And I hope Aaron Dobson really could step up for this squad. I think he's better than a Kembrell Tompkins. And I think, to be honest, your top three guys on this wide receiver core are Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, and Aaron Dobson. And Kembrell Tompkins, he's a reliable guy too. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns, and he made a one big catch in a game that actually won it for him.
Yeah, it's definitely very impressive to have those rookies that are able to step up. Another player that may potentially have to step up is their 4th round selection, James White, who basically fills in the shoes, or at least will attempt to, of potentially a huge contributor that was lost for them last year, maybe their biggest loss of the offseason. In my opinion, it's LeGarrette Blount, halfback now currently with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We were talking before the show here that, talking about this New England Patriots running game, it actually ranked better than their passing attack last year. They ranked 9th in the NFL running the football, which is extremely surprising. But then when you take a look statistically and what Blount brought to the table, you can understand how they were so balanced. Blount had 772 yards, 5 yards a carry, and 7 touchdowns, all of which is team highs. It beat Stephen Ridley and it beat Shane Vereen, which is extremely surprising given that he wasn't even expected to be the number 1 running back. And it brings up a huge question that I have here, Robert. Stephen Ridley and Shane Vereen are your only 2 running backs. Ridley has struggled over the last few years. Vereen has certainly stepped up to the task, at least statistically, but are these guys the answer?
But Vereen didn't have a lot of carries last year. All he had was 44. That really does concern me because I think you need to get this guy a lot more carries. And to be honest, Nick, I'm a little worried about Shane Vereen. I think he's going to have to step up and play a bigger role. Can he handle it? That's something that's a question mark. Stephen Ridley, his stats, as you said before the show, his stats keep on going down. That's a big concern. But they're heading into their final years of their contract. They're going to see which running back they want to take. Do they want Ridley or Vereen? Let's see what James White can do. And they still have a Brandon Bolden on that squad as well. Bolden didn't do that bad either. I mean, he averaged 4.9 yards a carry, so not too bad. And he saw the touchdown. He saw the end zone 3 times. So I think they have a wide receiver core the running back core that can get mixed around this year, but they don't really have that number 1 running back this year.
Yeah, basically Stephen Ridley's disappeared in this depth chart over the last year or two. He had 5.1 yards a carry, which is very impressive as a rookie. And then 2 years ago, he had 4.4, and then this past season, 4.3. Mm-hmm. His fumbles have also increased. He had none during his rookie campaign, 2 a couple years ago, and then 4 last year. I'm kind of concerned, but I believe that Ridley will have a bounce-back season. We were talking about the contract situation. Both of them are reaching their final year. Shane Vereen, you can expect to basically share the road with Stephen Ridley. But, part 2 to this question is that who else is going to be the guy that can help carry the load on the offensive side of the football? You can't expect to keep both of those running backs. You got to believe both are expecting some pretty big paydays. So, overall, Brandon Bolden definitely has to step up along with White. So that'll be a fun running back battle to take a look for. But overall, pretty good offensive line to run behind. They have a number of their starters returning. Dan Connolly at right guard, Vollmer at right tackle. You also have the Ryan Wendell experiment. He started all 16 games for them at center. Logan Mankins, a fantastic left guard out of Fresno State. Then your left tackle is Nate Solder, who has been extremely good for them. They took him just a few years ago in the NFL draft. So it should be fun. This offense remains one of the tops in the league. They were number 3 in points per game a year ago.
We also still have Gronk, but Gronk has had some injury problems, and Gronk
just a
needs,
couple, right?
Well, a lot, but he needs to stay. I mean, he has to stay healthy, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think he's going to at least miss maybe 4 to 5 games this season. Tom Brady has dealt with it, and I think he could do it again this year. I think if that offense stays pretty damn healthy throughout the whole season, I think this team only has 3 to 4 losses this year.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Rob Gronkowski said just a week ago, he mentioned that he expects to be playing all 16 games, and I'm pretty sure if there was a Vegas line for it, I would bet that he misses at least half the season. I mean, it's extremely sad, but to be that big, you have to believe, and just based off of my experience, Rob Gronkowski, there are a number of defensive players who are probably looking to take out the knees or take out the lower side of the body, because for a man that big, there's no reason to go take him on high. I mean, he's an amazing talent, definitely someone I would hate to cover because he can burn you in so many ways. Even if you got him right where you want him, he still can climb the ladder and catch the football. I mean, if Gronkowski is healthy for the playoffs, the Patriots are just as dangerous as anybody. When you take a look at the rest of the conference, I mean, the next best competitor is the Broncos. Mind you, they were very good last year, but you can't expect Denver to repeat their record-setting season. So I think the Patriots are just as good as anybody to go back to the Super Bowl.
And they did beat Denver in the regular season, as we said on the Denver Broncos show.
When they were more healthy, they had their number. So that and they would have actually ran away with the game if it weren't for a really subpar first half. They were behind something like 18 points in that game. So I think the Patriots they got a real good chance here coming up this year.
And what was interesting was some of the games that they played. The first game was pretty close. They played at Buffalo 23-21. Shane Vereen actually had 101 yards rushing. Very interesting. And then also another game you could say was close was Atlanta. That came down to the wire, but Tom Brady got it done. New Orleans, that was a great game, but the New England Patriots just beat out the Saints, and that is something to look out for. If the Super Bowl predictions come, the Saints versus the Pats, man, I think the Pats.
That's very likely.
I think the Pats could have their number. But Nick,
sports.
I gotta say, that would be such a great game to watch. That would be a great Super Bowl. And it's not, the best offense versus the best defense. I mean, yes, that wasn't a really good matchup because defense wins you championships, period. Your O-line couldn't handle that, couldn't handle the defense. Or even, Peyton Manning can't even scramble out of the pocket, then you're kind of screwed in that situation. But I think when you have two elite quarterbacks going at it, and probably potential one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL history, Tom Brady, I think that this is actually going to be a really good Super Bowl if it happens. And Nick, I still think they have the talent, but when that fourth quarter comes around, it's going to come down to the last couple plays to see if New England can beat the Saints or the Saints beat out New England. I still think it's a toss-up. I'm not sure what team's going to win yet. We still have not covered the Saints. So I think once we have covered the Saints, I can make a bold prediction.
Yeah, actually, two things. First of which, you mentioned defense wins championships, and I think we all could tell at least defense gives you a very good shot to win the Super Bowl. And basically, the Patriots, when healthy, are very good on the defensive end. And one thing that they did, which impresses me, is that they have retooled that side of the football and are a real viable portion to actually get back to the big game based off of their defense. They can actually carry them this year. And what makes it even more interesting is that our Super Bowl favorite for the NFC, the Saints, well, they let go of a Will Smith, and he should be starting for them at the defensive end spot. That should be interesting as a rotational caliber player. You're bringing a Darrelle Revis, cornerback from the Buccaneers and the Jets. You still have your big defensive tackle, Vince Wilfork. And don't forget about Dante Hightower. He should come in now in his third season and create an even bigger impact. This defense, Robert, looks pretty good.
Yes, they do, but they do lose to Brandon Spikes that goes to Buffalo, and that's really unfortunate to lose. I think that they kept Brandon Spikes. That would have made a bigger impact. And, all these players that leave call out Bill Belichick, Wes Welker has, and Brandon Spikes. It's really sad to hear that you guys are going to call out Bill Belichick on the way that he coaches. But, he wants to win he wants to win the Super Bowl and get a championship. There's nothing wrong with that. He's just pointing out the mistakes there are in games. Yes, maybe he should say some positive things once in a while, which he probably does. But he's also got to show every game you got to show your mistakes, because film never lies. And he watches film a lot, and I don't think Brandon Spikes really got the memo in New England.
I think Brandon Spikes, being as talented as he was, should have had more of a say-so, but New England thought that he was not worth the ticket price and let him go, which is understandable because you do bring back some pretty good linebackers. Dante Hightower, a solid rotational outside linebacker, more of a pass-rushing specialist, but can definitely rough it up in there between the tackles. Run-stuffing specialist, Gerard Mayo, he's coming back. And also a guy who flashed in a couple situations last year, Jamie Collins. He might be the will linebacker penciled in as the starter right at this point. But also you throw in some of the backups, and you got yourself a real solid situation here. Former Bear James Anderson, he's coming back and playing linebacker there for them. So I think the linebacker situation warranted at least some consideration that, hey, we don't necessarily need Spikes because, one, we have a pretty dominant defensive line, and two, some guys at linebacker can step up and play right away.
I think James Anderson could potentially start. I'm glad you brought that up. James Anderson actually had over 100 tackles last season for 4 sacks. For some reason, he is not a starter, but I think he could actually during training camp, I think this guy will potentially become a starter either at the strong side or weak side linebacking position. It's going to be something to watch out for. I think James Anderson makes an impact on that depth chart.
Another guy that can make an impact here, obviously, I think the one concern for the Patriots is the secondary at the safety position. But if you are going to basically hang your hat on one thing that you do very well, it's man-to-man coverage. You have a couple of very good cornerbacks, including a Darrelle Revis, but don't forget about Kyle Arrington. He's should be the other cornerback opposite Revis, and even a Logan Ryan, he should be able to step up and create some plays. And then at safety, Devin McCourty and Patrick Chung should be the starters this season. You got yourself a pretty good defense there in the secondary, but I think the strength is that front seven. And when we take a look statistically, I think the numbers prove it. They ranked very good against the run. They ranked very good against the pass. This is an 18th ranked pass defense, but that running game, I don't know exactly what 30th in the league has to do with a great defense. I think the loss of Vince Wilfork does skew those statistics at least a little bit.
And we're also forgetting the rookie that they just drafted in the first round, Dominique Eastland.
That's right.
And he's going to be a left defensive tackle. He'll be back up against. He'll probably be back up for Wilfork. They're both right now questionable. Right now Dominic Easley is actually probable for the start of the regular season, while Wilfork is questionable for the start of training camp. So I think that the Easley pickup was very good. I think he'll make an impact, and really, I think their D line has some pretty good depth to it as well. So I'm not worried about this D line. I think the D line is looking pretty damn good, and the linebacking core, they also have some depth. Cornerback position, they went out and got some guys. You forgot about Brian Browner from the Seattle Seahawks, and that's coming from this is also coming from one of the best defensive units in the league. I think Brian Browner is going to bring a lot with a Darrelle Revis. So you see those two, and they're going to be a scary duo together. I think Browner's going to have a way better season. Then you bring in a Logan Ryan as well, and Logan Ryan had the most interceptions for the Patriots last season. I think Logan Ryan and Darrelle Revis are going to be starting in that cornerback position, so watch out. I think the cornerback position is going to be very dangerous for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that'll be one of the under-the-radar performances. One thing I do want to take a look at is their draft class. How exactly did they improve? I'm sure that we'll take a look at the free agency as a whole as well, given that the Patriots, with the window for Tom Brady coming to a close and how the Denver Broncos treated their offseason, I think the Patriots really needed to have a solid draft, and I think they did just that. Their first-round selection, Dominique Easley, while injury concerns have basically been the biggest problem for one of the bigger defensive tackles coming out of the draft, Easley, over 300 pounds. He's definitely, 290. He's definitely a guy that can immediately play alongside another guy who's been injured, Vince Wilfork. But Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a high-risk, high-reward as well. Should be one of those guys that can step up and make an impact, but just don't know how consistent this guy will be, given that his competition in college, he played for Ohio Valley Conference, which isn't obviously the best conference in the NCAA. Definitely room to improve there. The rest of their draft, going to some concern. Brian Stork, a center, and James White, your fourth-round selections. He's a running back. And also they drafted an offensive tackle, Cameron Fleming. Looks like they're trying to secure the interior line right there. But I do think the draft, Robert, wasn't too bad.
No, it wasn't. And, Nick, I think James White is a guy to look out for in this offense. If Stephen Ridley or Shane Vereen maybe struggle this season, I think we could potentially see a little bit of James White this season. I think James White, he has the speed and the talent to potentially maybe become a future running back for the New England Patriots. You never know. This guy's going to be an under the radar type of rookies for this squad, and I don't think a lot of people are really going to notice him, but it's really going to prove what you do in the preseason. I think if you give James White a chance, let's see what he does.
There's one other thing that, basically one of the few problems that the Patriots have had in the draft is their inability to give Tom Brady some help. They did do so on the interior line with a couple of draft picks in the fourth, a center and a right tackle, and also throw in a guard they took in the sixth, John Halapio. He should make a later impact if he indeed lives up to expectations. But Jeremy Gallen is the lone draft pick they had at wide receiver or tight end. And he was taken with the third to last pick in the entire draft, 7th round pick 29. So I think overall, if there's one thing that the Patriots would have loved to have, it's maybe a receiver that is expected to even make the team. That's the lone problem that the Patriots have. But I think their receiving core isn't so bad that Brady will make a huge ruckus over it. But if people don't remember, early on last year, during those close wins, basically Tom Brady had a huge discussion. I'm sure they were talking about, nothing but good stuff there on the sideline. Brady was throwing his helmet. He was furious with his receivers. And, Robert, I'm sure you watched that game early in the season where, Brady doesn't know what in the world his receivers are doing sometimes.
Yeah, and he really doesn't, but he really had to work with the wide receiver core, and you know what? Towards the end of the season, they still only had 4 losses. Not too bad, and Tom Brady is a great leader and shows his leadership, and him and Bill Belichick have such a great relationship together that they kind of work together side by side, and Tom Brady works with the wide receivers, makes them a lot better. He knows how to make wide receivers look good. Potentially made Julian Edelman look like one of the best wide receivers in the game. But, Nick, we're also forgetting about one free agent acquisition they had. They got a Brandon LaFell from the Carolina Panthers. This guy saw the end zone 5 times and had 627 yards for 49 receptions. Brandon LaFell, I think, is going to help out this squad. He hasn't really seen, he had Cam Newton as a quarterback. Now he sees Tom Brady, and Tom Brady will throw the football. So I think Brandon LaFell could potentially be your third or fourth string wide receiver.
He's definitely an interesting prospect. You don't know if he was maybe a product of what the Panthers had or lack thereof at receiver, so he was expected to step up. But I think the Patriots do a very good job with receivers. No matter where they come from, they turn out to be very good for them. They've made Deion Branch into a Super Bowl MVP. They've made a number of guys better than what their ticket price is. So when you take a look at the receivers for the Patriots, not impressive, but still very good.
Oh, well, he makes the wide receiver corps look amazing, pretty much. He knows how to throw the football and knows where they're going to be at almost every time. Yes, he has to deal with the cornerback. The cornerback position is, I don't want to say cornerback position, but when you go against some tough corners, Tom Brady knows how to throw the football. It would be interesting to see what the Patriots would have done against the Seattle Seahawks, but I know that would be for another discussion. And now it's all
been 44-8, that's for sure.
Are you sure?
Personally, I don't think it would have been that big of a blowout. I think there's only 3 players that make this Patriots team, 2 of which are obvious: Bill Belichick, and you also have a Tom Brady, who basically make the football team. But the third guy is a Vince Wilfork on the defensive end. If those 3 are not on the field, that's basically last year. Didn't they go 12-4, maybe 13-3? They probably go 8-8, or maybe even worse if they don't have those 3 on the field. And you saw it in the playoffs. Vince Wilfork wasn't there, and they took a huge blow. It's similar to the New Orleans Saints. You saw when Sean Payton wasn't there, the kind of production that disappeared. It just the Patriots fans, no matter how miserable their press conferences is, listening to Belichick after winning a playoff game, just have absolutely no emotion at all. Forgetting that, the Patriots are absolutely lucky to have themselves, 1, a quarterback that has done good for them for this long, and 2, a coach who has been one of the greatest of all time. Both of them, obviously, first ballot Hall of Famers.
And Nick, you look at their schedule this year, and it's actually not that bad. And I think this team could potentially.
It fits them perfectly. They're notoriously slow starters. So their first 3 games are against the Dolphins, the Vikings, and the Raiders. Obviously, a great way to help with what has been one of their few problems of the season.
And Nick, I think their schedule is not that bad. I think they can get over the hump, and I think this is a team that can start out pretty strong and potentially maybe only have 3 to 4 losses this season. You never know. I think this is a team that can go 13-3 or 12-4 again. But it all depends on injuries. But Tom Brady, he worked through it. He had to pretty much carry that squad, pretty much that offense, and the defense had a lot of injuries on the other side. But Nick, I think the defense is a lot better this year, a lot stronger. So I don't think Tom Brady will have to be relied on as much this season. But Tom Brady will be pretty much the main guy in the playoffs.
Yeah, if there's one player that on the defensive side has to step up, it has to be a Vince Wilfork. He's got to be alive for all 16 games there on the defensive side, because if he's there, it opens up so many more opportunities for the rest of that side of the football. If he's good, so are the Patriots. Look out for New England. This should be an extremely entertaining season for the Patriots, to be honest with you. They play, while you mentioned their schedule is easy at the beginning, it does get tough towards the end, and a lot of road games following the bye definitely make it a rough finish for them, but they should be able to prevail. And 13-3, not a far cry from what reality is for this team, because outside of a couple positions, this team matches up against anybody at nearly every other spot on the field.
And they do, and this team knows what they're doing, which is going to be, I think this team really just figured themselves out last season. I think they know the wide receiver core. They know what they can do with it. I think the defense is probably the biggest difference in that squad. But I mean, Steven Ridley and Shane Vereen were there last season. They also had Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman, Cameron Tompkins, and Aaron Dobson all there last year. And Gronkowski was there last year, and he's been a New England Patriot for his whole career. And Tom Brady has too. So I think this squad has chemistry now coming into this season for the offense. The defense, though, they're really going to have to work together. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look out for, but I think they'll be right around the middle of the pack on the statistics side of the football. And one more point to add here for the New England Patriots. I mean, Tom Brady, I already mentioned, was so amazing given that, they've basically given him absolutely nothing at receiver. Now you got to believe he has a blanket at tight end for the start of the season with Rob Gronkowski. But mind you, this man took a pay cut in order to keep Wes Welker. He still doesn't make the team yet, Wes Welker still isn't a part of the ball club. But Tom Brady doesn't fret at all, just is continually the guy to depend on. And the Patriots have been lucky to have one of the better sixth-round selections of this storied National Football League.
That was a big story, but you know what also is a story? The depth chart. And let's go on to the cornerback position. The quarterback position. Nick, I don't know how you could give a below an A. Tom Brady makes wide receivers look amazing and knows how to work with them. Yes, he can get frustrated at times, but Nick, he knows how to work with any wide receiver core he has. He's had really good wide receiver cores, and he has some really bad ones. Last year was kind of it was supposed to be awful, and he made them look awesome. So I think Tom Brady, I got to give this guy an A+ because he shows his leadership and dedication. He's worked with Bill Belichick, and Nick, this guy has had an amazing story his whole NFL career. This guy was a 6th-round pick. He played at my high school, and he's been such a huge story.
In there, huh?
I always have to throw that in there. Tom Brady, man, he gets so much attention at our school. Went to Michigan, but his first throw in Michigan was an interception. Maybe not a best highlight, but I remember just watching that interview he had. I think it was on ESPN or NFL Network. It was pretty much about his whole career, and he cried on that because he didn't think he was going to play football. And Nick, his freshman year in high school, this kid didn't start, and it was kind of sad. He almost quit. He wasn't going to play his sophomore year. He found that the kid that was the starter quit, so he came back. And look what happened now. He became a starter. One of our coaches played wide receiver, and he got balls thrown to him by Tom Brady. Pretty amazing story, but Nick, I gotta say, Tom Brady, this guy has fought through a lot of emotions, made it to the Super Bowl many times, and I want to see it happen again and see him win another Super Bowl championship.
Yeah, it's definitely very lucky to have Tom Brady. I give him an A+ as well. I mentioned earlier on the Denver Broncos team breakdown my top 5 quarterbacks of all time, and I believe Tom Brady's the second best, only behind Joe Montana. He's just that good because Denver, basically Peyton Manning has dominated the record books. He has been wildly inconsistent. If there's one great thing about Tom Brady and one great thing about all of the tops quarterbacks of all time, it's their ability to consistently, no matter what is on the field, make plays and be the bell cow of a team that's been to the playoffs nearly every single season. Only one time in the last 11 years where the Patriots have not made the playoffs. Tom Brady is the reason. Give him an A+.
I know we could talk about Tom Brady forever, Nick. I would really love to, but we gotta move on. I love this guy, though. I mean, I've loved him ever since he became a Patriot.
Okay, chill.
I'm sorry.
No, but I get
He's
it,
my
though.
favorite quarterback in this league.
I wish he was playing for my favorite team, San Diego, and I'm sure you're the same.
Hey, Phillip Rivers had a good season, man.
Our quarterbacks aren't bad, but Brady is obviously the best of the bunch.
I wish we had him in the San Francisco 49ers system. I don't like Colin Kaepernick, but oh well. Right. Let's move on to the running back position. You have Steven Ridley, which we've been talking about, and a Shane Vereen. And you have a Brian Bolden and a James White. Nick, I gotta say, You're probably gonna be a little sharp on my grade, but I gotta give it a B minus. I think Stephen Ridley isn't gonna have great stats this year, but I have concern for Shane Vereen because he's gonna have to take on a way bigger role. He's pretty much has to take on what Blunt played last year. He's gonna have to have over 100 something carries. He only had 44 last year. Maybe Nick, this isn't a concern for you, but it is for me, especially their running back position. Stephen Ridley has been leading that charge for the last 3 years. He's coming to his 4th year now. I think Ridley, he's going to go somewhere else next season. I think Shane Vereen might stay, and I think New England Patriots get a new running back. I think that's going to be the story. Maybe James White steps up, but I still think this isn't an improve. I don't think they need to improve it as much. I just think that the consistency is probably what's going to worry me most about the running backs.
Yeah, I think, and listen, I'm concerned too with this running back position. I mean, you have a couple guys who basically are nothing more than role players that you're expecting to carry the football team. But they did rank 9th in the league in rushing last year. They did have, despite the concerns and despite the drop in production, they still had 4.5 yards a carry, which isn't half bad. But also, one more thing I want to add with LeGarrette Blount. Now no longer with the team. He not only had 5 yards per carry, which is a career high for him, and 7 touchdowns, which led the team. This is also a guy that was amazing in the return game. He had 29 yards per kick return, which was tops on the team. It beats a Josh Boyce and a Julian Edelman, 2 pretty solid return men in and of their own right. I mean, when you can return every kick to the 30-yard line and give your team 5 yards a carry on the ground, that is an amazing amount of production for a guy that was just a free agent acquisition during the season. He wasn't even a guy that was taken during the offseason last year. Patriots give him a 1-year deal, and unfortunately he's no longer with them. But I still give this running back core, when it's all said and done, about a B minus. They're not amazing, but they're good enough to rank top 10 in rushing last year.
Let's move on to the wide receiver core. You have Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, Aaron Dobson, Brandon LaFell, a free agent acquisition, Kimbrel Tompkins, and you also have Josh Boyce, who's coming into his 2nd season with the ball club. Nick, I gotta say, I like the wide receiver core. I think Tom Brady is gonna have great stats. Once again, he threw for over 4,000 yards. I gotta say, I think I'm gonna give him a B plus. I don't think this is, one of the highest caliber type of wide receiver cores, but Julian Edelman stepped up last season, and he's actually a Bay Area native. Went to Woodside High School, then played for my local community college, and then then he actually went to Kent State, and then actually got the start for New England. So very interesting story there for him. Actually wasn't the greatest kid in high school, but now this guy really steps up and plays for New England and gets balls thrown to by Tom Brady.
Is that surprising or what?
I know, there's a lot of good stories around here.
Issues, so you go to New England.
And he
start
changes.
Winning games in the playoffs and championships. I mean, how surprising.
And what I like about the wide receiver core, these guys have playoff experience now. These are some of these young guys. Now they got playoff experience. I think this is why this team could potentially go all the way. The wide receiver core now has that playoff experience. I still like I think Brandon LaFell was a great pickup for him. And I don't think he really fit with the Carolina Panthers system. And to be honest, it was really just Steve Smith. And Brandon LaFell, I mean, yes, he got thrown a lot of balls too, but I don't think he really fit very well with the Carolina Panthers. And Nick, I also gotta say, I gotta like Kimbrel Tompkins. This guy came out of nowhere. He was just picked off up the streets. No one thought he was gonna be that good. He made a couple of big time plays for New England last year, and I still think it could happen again. And Aaron Dobson, he's got to keep on getting better. Period. So B plus.
Yeah, I'm going to give him about a B. I mean, this unit is no longer an enormous weakness on the football team. I mean, when you have a guy that in Julian Edelman had over 1,000 yards receiving and was basically the security blanket for a majority of the second half of the year for Tom Brady. I mean, overall, this receiving core isn't half bad. And one other thing I do want to add is that, and what really does concern me, though. The other side of things is that to start training camp, there are a couple guys on the receiving corps, Matthew Slater, Jeremy Gallen, and also Aaron Dobson, who are on the PUP here to start training camp, questionable for the start of the year, and that's a huge concern for New England, who has basically suffered injury problems on the defensive side. Hopefully, these receivers will still be here for the start of things in the regular season this year.
And also one thing, we hope Rob Gronkowski is going to be here for the whole season. I don't think it's going to happen, but let's find out. Let's go to the tight end position. You have Gronk, DJ Williams, and a guy they re-signed, Michael Huma. I don't know how you say it. His last name is
Humanawinui. Nobody knows how to say that.
Humanawinui. He is Hawaiian, but Nick, I think Humanawinui was a good pickup. I watched this guy play, and to be honest, that's the first time I think I heard it right. I think the broadcaster said it really wrong in the beginning, because I remember they said Humanakanawi or something like that. So I think there's a lot of ways to say it. But the tight end position isn't bad, but when DJ Williams is the second string guy right now, he would have to step up, and Humanakanawi has to really step up as well. I'm trying to say his name right here. It's tough.
Hilarious.
It's tough, but Gronk needs to stay healthy. Nick, I gotta say, it's gonna be
This is so.
It's hard to predict. You know what I mean?
A C, but it could easily be an A. It's
exactly.
So weird.
I'm gonna give it. I'll give it the in between. I'll give it a B. I think if Gronk gets hurt for 45 games, it's still kind of a B. But they won't really have anybody else to throw to. DJ Williams, he's kind of new to this system. Then Humanakanawi gets re-signed, and he played 13 games, 12 receptions, 136 yards. He's gonna have to step up for this squad. So I actually want to change my grade to a B minus. I like Gronk. Gronk is one of the best tight ends in this game, no doubt about it. But him staying healthy on the field has been such a big concern his whole entire career. And I don't think it's going to be this year where he stays healthy the whole season.
And obviously the Patriots, I'm sure, have been preparing for this. If Rob Gronkowski is not on this depth chart right now, you have DJ Williams, Michael Humanawinui, and Justin Jones. Those are the penciled-in 3 players for your football team. And when you take a look at the statistics, Gronkowski was 15 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns off of 39 receptions during extremely limited time playing for the New England Patriots. He was a huge security blanket, and the Patriots averaged about something around in the neighborhood of about 100 more yards passing per game when he was in the lineup. So he's a huge, important part of the puzzle. Literally, he's a ginormous portion of that Patriots offense. But I think I'm going to go somewhere in the middle as well. Going to give it about a B plus personally, because I think we can agree. I think it's safe to say he will play for at least half the season, which would be huge for them at the start of the year. After 3 weeks, they play the Chiefs and the Bills on the road. They also take on no slouch in the Bengals during the first 6 weeks, and the Jets as well. Should be interesting, but I think Gronkowski will be healthy enough to play at least 8 games.
Let's move on to that O-line. You have at left tackle Nate Solder. You have Logan Mankins. You got Ryan Wendell, Dan Connolly, and a Sebastian Vollmer, and that's from left to right. On this O-line, Nick, I gotta say I'm gonna give him a B. I mean, Tom Brady still gets pressured, but Tom Brady
40 sacks last year.
Yeah, I know, but he still manages to get the ball off somehow.
Sure.
Takes 2 steps, it's gone. It's got to go quick. So Julian Edelman has to get open very quickly, and he does somehow. I don't know how Julian Edelman does it, but I mean, I think Tom Brady really developed him in that way. They're good against. I mean, this is a O-line that helps the running game a lot, so that's something I look forward to this season. But Nick, I feel bad for Tom Brady because he gets pressured a lot, and they go against Seattle. That's gonna hurt them too because I don't see that O-line helping out Tom Brady.
I'm going to give you another point of reference here and maybe change your grade. At least I hope so. The Patriots, while he has been sacked a lot, while Tom Brady has basically not had a whole lot to work with, they still rank on the offensive side 7th overall, including 3rd in points per game. And you can't do that with an offensive line and a receiving. I mean, you can't say that they rank so high when you have Stephen Ridley as your running back, and your receivers, other than Edelman, are, I mean, guys that you really have to look hard at to even understand what their name is. Michael Humanawinui, he's a viable portion of their offense because I think the offensive line is so dominant. I mean, when you look at nearly 5 yards per carry last year, that offensive line, I think, has to be better than just a B. I'm going to give them a grade of an A because they've been so good over the last decade or so offensively, and I think a lot of that has to do with an offensive line. I mean, when you take a look at a lot of the best offenses in the league, consistency-wise, they have some of the best offensive lines in the game. It all starts with the trenches. I think the Patriots do it among the best in the league. I mean, Nate Solder, amazing left tackle. You have Don Connolly at right guard, and your tackled Sebastian Vollmer among the best. That's my opinion.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. I'm saying a B at a consistent rate. And I think B is fine. Yeah. This is a consistent O-line. I'm not saying they're that bad. I'm not saying they're great. I'm saying they're just like in the middle type of O-lines. And Tom Brady gets sacked a lot, Nick, and you're going against NFC. They're not even playing the 49ers. They're not playing the Rams. They're not playing the Seahawks. They're not playing that NFC West.
East among the best, right?
They are playing the Buffalo Bills. I think hey, they have a good D line, Nick. Why are you laughing about that? They're pretty good at getting sacks, and that's something that concerns me against Buffalo. And that's why they barely won that game, because that Buffalo Bills D line kept them in it. Period.
They aren't playing the Niners or the Seahawks, but they are playing the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, because they can get sacks.
A discrepancy in talent between them and
them. Yes, but the Buffalo Bills do not have a bad defense. The D-line is pretty scary. Mm-hmm. You can at least agree with that.
If there's the strength of this O-line, it is run blocking, which is ironic because this team is so good passing the football. But ironically enough, I think the Patriots understand what wins in the playoffs, which is running the football and great defense. While Tom Brady is an amazing quarterback, obviously part 2 to the discussion is you have to have a great quarterback, but running the football is great. They have an amazing, powerful offensive line and playing great defense, which I'm sure we'll allude to in just a second.
Well, we're going to move on to the defensive side. So for Nick, do you know what the overall is for the offense?
The overall is a B+. No surprise among the best. They rank the same as the Broncos and the same as a number of other great offenses. Throw the Falcons in there and throw teams like the Packers in the mix as well with a B+.
All right, let's move on to that D-line. At the left defensive end, you have Rob Ninkovich.
Yeah,
Rob Ninkovich. Then you have, of course, your Vince Wilfork. Behind him is the rookie right now that is supposed to be Dominique Easley, and this guy is supposed to be a really good draft pick. Hopefully he's not a bust. So far he is injured and might not even play the first 1 or 2 weeks of the season. Then you have also a Tommy Kelly and a Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones is so far the sack leader on this squad, and picking him up was huge. So Chandler Jones, I gotta say, this really improved the D-line. Vince Wilfork is a concern for me. He needs to stay healthy. If he stays healthy in the playoffs with a Chandler Jones, man, I see this D-line really just stepping up this year. I think I'm going to give him, I gotta say, maybe this is a little high, but I give him a B+. I think if Vince Wilfork and Chandler Jones stay healthy they stay healthy together throughout this season, I think in the playoffs, their D-line will not be that bad. I think they got that 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I actually don't think it's high enough. I'm going to give this defensive line an A-. When you take a look at some of the amazing production you get out of a Chandler Jones with 11.5 sacks last year, ranks among the best. That's also paired up with one of the best, and mind you, one of the greater pass coverage defensive tackles in the league. That is Vince Wilfork. He had 2 interceptions in 2012 and was really good for the Patriots on the defensive side of the football. Obviously missed a lot of games, but isn't a concern this year because the depth is extremely impressive. Will Smith, could start on half of the teams in the league. He's a penciled-in backup right now. Dominique Easley and Vince Wilfork, the 2D tackles, but throw on a Chris Jones as well. He should be a great addition there for them, and also Rob Ninkovich, which many people don't mention among the better linebacker defensive guys in the division, but he still can get it done. Ninkovich, while he did have some injury concerns, did have 91 tackles last year, 8 quarterback sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and was very good for them in run support. I give this unit an A-.
Yeah, and we both give some really nice high grades there. Let's move on to the linebacking core. We got Jamie Collins. You got Jaron Mayo, who's going to be replacing Brandon Spikes. Kind of maybe a lost gain as well, because they did kind of add some pieces to that linebacking core. And then Dante Hightower. Nick, I got to say the linebacking core has some depth. I got to say I think the biggest depth, though, is a James Anderson, a guy that got over 100 tackles last season for 4 sacks and got a fumble recovery and played every single game of the season. Nick, I'm going to give this, I'm going to give him a B. I think this is going to be a consistent linebacking core, but I think the D-line is really going to help him out in that forefront. I think the linebacking core is going to kind of be the run stuffers, but Dante Hightower, I think this guy is going to have a way better season. I think this guy potentially gets over 100 tackles.
Yeah, this linebacking core is good. I agree with you. I'm going to give him a B. I think the one problem, though, with James Anderson, he comes over to a situation far different than Chicago. Last year, he played right behind one of the best defensive ends in the game. That's Julius Peppers. And, basically, this guy should be maybe even getting more production than that. But he's penciled in as the backup. Dante Hightower is not bad. Jamie Collins is still very raw in the league, and he's the penciled-in starter, but still a solid linebacking core that is no longer the weakness for this team, given that they lost Brandon Spikes in free agency. Give him a B.
Give him a B. Let's move on that quarterback position. You got Darrelle Revis Island. Let's see what happens. Does Darrelle Revis really make a big impact for New England, and can he help them make a run, can help them make a run to the Super Bowl title? And then you have Brandon Browner. These two guys are picked off of free agency. Brandon Browner coming from the Seattle Seahawks system, coming off Super Bowl victory over the Denver Broncos. And then you have a Logan Ryan, who is your best cornerback for New England last season with 5 interceptions. And you got an Alfonso Denard, who had 40 tackles and an interception last season. Nick, I like Darrelle Revis and I like Brian Browner as your 2 penciled-in starters. I think Browner, this guy was hurt, only played 9 games last season, so let's see what Browner can do for the New England Patriots. As we keep on saying, the Patriots have had a lot of injuries, and that is something they're really known for, which could really hurt them in the playoffs. If everyone stays healthy before the playoffs, even if they get like an 11-5 or 10-6 record, this squad will still be pretty set either way. Nick, I like Darrelle Revis. Everyone calls him Revis Island, and he's pretty much comes over from the New York Jets. I'm going to give this grade, I think, I gotta say an A- because I like Logan Ryan. This guy is still, he's so far penciled in as the backup, but 5 interceptions. Then you got Darrelle Revis, and a lot of people say he is considered the best cornerback in this league, but, everyone's saying now Richard Sherman. Skip Bayless even told him, was he better than Darrelle Revis? His answer was, I'm better than you, to Skip Bayless. But, that's for another story. I like Darrelle Revis. I think he's going to have a really good season. I know he played all 60 games, only had 2 interceptions, but this guy has a good man-to-man coverage. I think when you bring over Brandon Browner, a guy that has played in the Seattle Seahawks system, can give some good pointers to New England and really help them with their defensive squad. And then Logan Ryan, you have 3 solid corners right there.
I think one thing that I want to add, and I do love the cornerback crew this year, going to give him a B+ though, because personally I think Darrelle Revis is very overrated. He's a guy that came over from the New York Jets, refused to sign a very good deal with one of the better defenses in all of football, would have made the Jets an amazing defensive secondary for years to come. They're still good now, but Revis would have made him better. I think he's overrated because, one, I think he demands way too much out of a football team, and two, last year, the Buccaneers, they ranked last against the pass, and Revis was on the roster and played all the games. I mean, understandably, they don't have a lot around Revis. They didn't, but still, there's no excuse for being the number one corner and leading one of the worst defenses in NFL history. So I think he's a little overrated. I do love Logan Ryan, though, and Kyle Arrington as well at the cornerback spot. Should be good. I'm going to give him a B+, but still a cornerback crew that's far better than the team they put on last year.
Well, let's see what their safety positions rank in. You have Patrick Chung and Devin McCourty. And Devin McCourty had played 15 games, 69 tackles. And you have Patrick Chung, who played 12 games, 59 tackles, and a fumble recovery. This is an okay unit. I would say this is probably one of the weaknesses for this squad.
Right.
In that defensive side, I think they did more on the cornerback and the linebacking core because they wanted to keep, without Brandon Spikes, they really wanted to keep the linebacking core kind of consistent. They wanted to really make the cornerback position really solid. Yeah, man, this is probably a really low grade, and you're probably going to disagree with me. I give them a C+. I think they can improve, and I think they could have done a little bit better in the safety position.
Yeah, I'm going to give them a B-. It's the typical complementary duo at the safety position, and furthermore, they don't exactly have a backup option for them outside of a Daron Harmon. He should be solid for them, but Patrick Chung is a guy that can roughen it up there in between the trenches. Meanwhile, Devin McCourty, the typical pass coverage safety, he's playing the free spot this year. Give him a B-, and that's even maybe a stretch, but I do love what McCourty brings to the table. Statistically, last year for him, he rallied up one interception. Wasn't great, but this team didn't exactly have that many picks as a team last year. So I think overall, Daron Harmon actually had two a season ago, 2 picks. He should be a viable portion for them. B-, I think, is overall a solid grade, which actually rounds the defense out at about a B+ because of how good the defensive line plays. And, I mean, overall, this isn't as good as the offense, but that side of the football isn't half bad.
And, Nick, we give you and me kind of disagreed on some B+ and A-. So I could have helped out a little bit, too. And their cornerback position and the D-line are probably the 2 strong points for that defense, and that is something to really look out for. That is huge. And the Denver Broncos don't have a solid cornerback position. Their D-line isn't very solid, but they kind of have the opposite where they have an okay linebacking core, so you could say it's kind of the same as the New England Patriots in a way. And then the safety position, well, they got TJ Ward over there. So I think the safety position, you could say the Denver Broncos have that rating way better. Nick, what did we say actually for the Denver Broncos in New England? Pretty much grade-wise.
The Broncos got a B+ on the offensive side. Same with the Patriots. The Broncos got a B, though, on the defensive end, and we gave New England a B+. I think the one problem was that the Broncos don't exactly have many solutions at the cornerback position, which I think is a more important spot than the safeties. I think you can live without good safeties, but without good cornerbacks, there will be receivers that that basically burn you all day. The only thing that safeties are asked to do is play deep. Don't get burned on those deep routes, which, I mean, isn't basically a safety is only asked to make plays a couple times a game, while cornerbacks need to shut down a top receiver. Safety is important. I think cornerback is more, and the Broncos are only starting a Bradley Roby, a rookie, and while they let go of Champ Bailey, didn't exactly bring a whole lot of talent around him. That's the situation there. And the Patriots, I mean, may have one of the better D tackles in the game under Vince Wilfork.
And do you think Roby could kind of be like a D. Milliner in this league?
Not right now, to be honest, and maybe not. I think he's going to be average for them. That's the problem with the Broncos. They got a good first-round pick, a safe selection, or I don't know exactly safe. His character issues are a cause for concern. But I think the Patriots have the better situation here right now. because Kyle Arrington and Logan Ryan, they should provide some huge plays in the coming years for them. Not now, but even a future for the Patriots at the cornerback position. I mean, which is extremely rare to say down there in New England. Their defense hasn't exactly been this good in a long time.
All right, well, let's move on to special teams when we have punter Ryan Allen. Your punt returner is Julian Edelman. And you have Steven Janikowski, who went 38 for 41. His longest was 54 last season. And your kick returner is Matthew Slater. Nick, I gotta say, they don't have a bad unit. I really like Steven Janikowski. He went 38 for 41. And made most of his attempts, only missed 3. So I think I'm gonna give this unit a B+. And Nick, the coaching side, Bill Belichick is a great coach. I think what I like about him is he points out the mistakes and tries to fix them every week. And a lot of people don't really notice that in a coaching staff. I give the coaching staff a B+.
A B+. Wow. I'm going to give the coaching staff an A and the special teams a B- because I don't really like what you're getting at the return game. And your punter, Ryan Allen, wow, actually, scratch that. He's actually very good there overall. His inside the 20 punting average isn't all that impressive, but he punts almost 46 yards per kick, which isn't half bad, a long of 65. Also throw in Tom Brady. He's a very good punter in and of his own right, and he should make a big impact for them. I mean, that's what's so fascinating about the Patriots. They'll even have their quarterback kicking punts there for them. But, I mean, the punt returning and kick returning, huge loss because LeGarrette Blount no longer on the football team. Should definitely demand more out of a Julian Edelman and a Josh Boyce, who are the backup return men for them.
And it's just gonna be really interesting what this team could do, Nick. I'm actually gonna change my grade to an A-.
For the coach?
Yeah, for the coaching staff. I mean, Bill Belichick, this guy knows what he's doing, and he tells Tom Brady, "This is your team. See what you can do with it." Pretty much, you gotta work with what's around you, and Bill Belichick makes that known to him.
Yeah, it's overall a real good situation here for the defensive side of the football. And basically, Bill Belichick, you mentioned how good he is. Well, he's been working with absolutely nobody. Now they really have a football team on the defensive side. I mean, one of the highest grades we've given any defense here in NFL Team Breakdowns. They have a future perennial Pro Bowl player under Darrelle Revis, one of the best D tackles, future Hall of Famer Vince Wilfork. You have solid players now at the linebacking position, and while you don't have a Brandon Spikes, you have a very good pass coverage man under Logan Ryan, who has stepped up beautifully for them. I think this defense is among the best in the league, and I know that's far-fetched, but when you have Vince Wilfork, I mean, he's basically the anchor that keeps that team moving.
You know what's not far-fetched is we actually have a caller. That is Blake Devine. Blake, how's it going?
It's going good, Robert. Actually, my friend from Boston he's a huge Patriots fan, and he has a question for you, so why don't you... Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Chris Gleason. I've been a Patriots fan for years. Everyone's talking about the big signings of Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner. Finally, we've upgraded our secondary, but Browner's suspended for the first 4 games of the season. I'm just wondering, what are the Patriots going to do about that situation? Should they start Logan Ryan, maybe? Or should they move Devin McCourty in from safety? What do you think they should do for those first 4 games?
Well, I'll answer the question first. They still have a Logan Ryan, who got 5 interceptions last year. Was the best corner from the New England Patriots a year ago. I think Logan Ryan and Darrelle Revis are going to be working together for the first 4 games. And to be honest, they have an easy schedule going into the first 4 games are actually not that hard. Yes, you play at Kansas City. That could hurt you, but I think Darrelle Revis is going to be on Jamal Charles no matter what, because all the Kansas City Chiefs only have Jamal Charles to throw to. And they only have Miami, Minnesota, Oakland, and Kansas City in those first 4 games. Browner, this guy won't really make a big impact. Well, I mean, since he's suspended, he won't really make a huge impact in those first 4 games. But towards the end of the schedule, in the middle of it, I think that's when he's going to come into play. And I think, I just think that Logan Ryan and Darrelle Revis are going to be completely fine for the first 4 games. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I think the Patriots will consider both options. I'm pretty sure even they don't know yet because I love what Devin McCourty brings at the cornerback position, one of the faster players in the secondary. And I think overall, no matter what the situation is, McCourty, Logan Ryan, throwing some of the other players in there, I think overall New England should not have any concerns given one, how good their starting corner is, Darrelle Revis, and two, the level of competition. The receiving cores for these first four teams are not good at all. The best receiver out of the bunch, that's Dwayne Bowe, and that's it.
Are you there?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that, Robert. Yeah, so we got to go, but thanks for having us.
No problem, Blake. I'll talk to you later. Have fun in Boston.
I mean, he could have said more.
I know, he could have said a little bit more, but that's all right. Hey, you know, Nick, we're getting to our favorite part. And
favorite part of the show.
Do you know how much games we have to predict?
Absolutely nothing.
Well, I mean, we got like 4, but still.
Yeah, we did do 4. But I think one thing that I do want to mention before we get going is that the Brandon Browner suspension, just want to add to that. Even when he's back in the lineup, listen, I mean, there are some great players on that team. Kyle Arrington as well. Browner, I don't know. He may not even be the number 2 corner. They may throw Browner in the slot to cover some of the better slot receivers in the division, especially later on once he returns. I mean, just overall, they play the Broncos later on. There's some great slot receivers, include the Colts in that mix as well. They play them after the bye. I think the Patriots have a very interesting situation, but a good situation at corner where there's way too much talent. They're going to have to figure out what to do with all these players.
We're going to have to figure out the NFL schedule in just a minute. Nick, we're going to cue this music, and we're going to start with Week 1 at Miami. Nick? This is a game I think the New England Patriots, they've done it before. They went at Buffalo and got the win 23-21. I think it's going to be a close game, but Nick, New England Patriots get the job done.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take it here for the next couple weeks here as we have basically predicted nearly the entire schedule. The first 2 weeks, it's a 2-game road trip for New England at the Dolphins, then at the Vikings. And both Robert and I agree it's a 2-0 start, and actually 3-0 start when you include a Week 3 game home against the Oakland Raiders. It sets up a Week 4 contest on the road to take on Kansas City. And with the Brandon Browner suspension, I think it may be a little bit too much. New England, a notoriously slow-starting football team, and I think the first of only a couple losses on the year, that goes on the road against Kansas City. The 3-1 start, though, for me, Robert believes they start 4-0. Week 5, home against the Bengals, I think they get the win.
Nick, versus Cincinnati at home, yes, you're going to get the win because definitely when you're at home, this team is going to come together. I think when Browner comes back, I think the Patriots are going to be a complete football squad.
Over the last decade, no team has won more in the NFL at their home stadium than the New England Patriots. Week 6 on the road against the Bills, I give them another loss, and they fall to 4-2 at the Buffalo Bills. Meanwhile, Robert agrees that I think he thinks the Patriots can take over the Bills despite it being in Buffalo and the fact that the Bills nearly beat them to start the regular season over there at Orchard Park. But it sets up a Week 7 contest home against the New York Jets. And Robert, I want your opinion on why you think the Patriots will lose at home against the New York Jets. Rex Ryan believes that the Patriots should look out for him, but enough for a loss?
This is the most surprising game I think I have in the schedule, Nick. I think the New York Jets, I think they somehow get the job done. Somehow in some amazing fashion in overtime.
Yeah, the Jets have actually played the Patriots relatively well, and you got to believe during this portion of the year, New York has a tough first couple of games, far tougher than what the Patriots have. They definitely will try to bounce back and reclaim some competitive fire there in the division. Meanwhile, I think that the Patriots go on a 3-game, it's all at home, home against the Jets, home against the Bears, and home against the Broncos is a 3-game winning streak entering into the bye. Meanwhile, Robert thinks that in Week 8 they do defeat the Bears, before in Week 9 it's a loss. The Patriots at home against the Broncos. They think that Denver wins that game. Nevertheless, both of us agree that it is a 7-2 start for the Patriots before a Week 10 bye. Then Week 11 on the road against the Colts. Both of us agree that it is a win. Do you think that the Patriots can defeat the Colts even though it's on the road?
Yes, I think they can. And against the Colts, yeah, it's a tough team. You're going against Andrew Luck, but with that cornerback position, I mean, Reggie Wayne could have a tough time catching anything.
For those of you just tuning in, it's an 8-2 start. We both think that the New England Patriots get off to a real hot beginning to the division. Week 12, home against the Detroit Lions. I think the Patriots win again. Meanwhile, Robert thinks that it's a loss for that Patriots squad. They cannot get it done over the Detroit Lions. Then Week 13 and Week 14, it's a 2-game road trip at the Packers and at the Chargers. We both think that it's back-to-back wins for the New England Patriots. Week 15, home against the Dolphins. What do you got?
Nick, I got to give them the win here against Miami. New England they lost one game last year, but this team is fully together now, and they understand that this is an elite team, and they are one of the best teams in the NFL. They could beat Miami easily.
The Patriots have had somewhat of a tough time defeating Miami, but it is at home, and New England always seems to play great coming into the latter portion of the season. The only problem is, in Week 16, New England has to travel to the new Meadowlands Stadium to take on the Jets, and I think that may be a little too much, especially when the Patriots, by this portion, I think they have already secured the AFC East. Based off of my predictions, they have. So I give the Jets the win over the Patriots. Robert thinks that they will go on another victory heading into Week 17. And Robert, you give the Patriots a loss at home against the Bills.
I just don't think they care anymore. It's the end of the season, and they probably just want to get the season over with and go to the playoffs.
Yeah, Buffalo is one of those interesting teams. We had them winning more games than last year because just how good they had that NFL draft work out for them. Sammy Watkins may be the difference there in a Week 17 contest. I give the Patriots the win, which means that my prediction is New England has the best overall record in the AFC, 13-3. Meanwhile, Robert has New England at 12-4. Very interesting scenario here, as both of us think heading into the bye, they're 7-2. It's just after that, things get very interesting. Their schedule gets a little tougher at the Colts, at the Packers, and at the Chargers during 3 of their next 4, and then a road trip to the Jets before a home contest against the Bills. Interesting scenario, and I think New England may be able to handle it a little better than most teams, given that this always seems to be a ball club that brings their best when it comes to a tough schedule.
And no, Nick, this isn't a tough schedule, but I think this team could go potentially 13-3 as well. And I said a couple of games that I probably shouldn't have. Probably. They're losing. Okay,
it's
Nick.
not going to impress anybody, but they always seem to draft or at least prepare for the Patriots better than any other team that they face. I mean, they're going to bring the best. The rest of the division. They're going to bring their best football when they take on the New England Patriots, which is why New England has very rarely swept the division. It's extremely tough to do that because the rest of the AFC East is going to bring their best football, and both of us think that they go 4-2 against the AFC East, which isn't half bad.
No, it's not, but I should have said they should have lost more games on the road than at home. Something I should have looked at and noticed a little bit more in my schedule. But either way, I think this team goes 13-3, 12-4. I probably might not get some of these games right. I think they go on a 6-0 tear in the beginning of the season. And everyone says they have a slow start. Well, I think this is going to be a fast start for them. So something interesting to look out for in my predictions.
They don't even have to have a fast start because they don't play great competition. It's just you got to figure out a way to win those close games. And the Patriots actually went on a 4-0 tear to start last season before a loss I believe against, what was it, Cincinnati? I'm not 100% sure. But, I mean, basically, New England, they always figure out a way to win the close games. And you got to believe that early on in the season, it won't be all too hard to get off to a firing start. And one other interesting aspect here, just throwing another wrench into the discussion here, is that the Jets have a far different schedule to start the season, much more rigorous to begin the year. When you take a look at what the Patriots have to start the season, it's the Dolphins, Vikings, Raiders, Chiefs, Bengals, Bills. That's your start. Meanwhile, the Jets, they have the Packers on the road, the Bears, the Lions at San Diego, home against Denver, take on the New England Patriots in Foxborough, and then a road contest against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's the big contest for the Jets to start the year. Far different than what New England has to begin the season.
And it's gonna be very interesting what New England could put up this year against in the playoffs, especially if this team could stay healthy and could stay pretty much as an elite team throughout the whole season. Then this will be one of the best teams we have seen from the Patriots in a while, and it's going to be more of a team that's they're kind of young, but they also have playoff experience, so that's something interesting to watch out for. Nick, we got to wrap it up here, but thank you for all our fans listening to NFL Team Breakdowns. And Nick, what's our next team?
Make sure to tune in, guys. We should in the next few days, not tomorrow, but very quickly, have a team breakdown of one of the better teams in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles. That'll be coming up next. Will they win the division? We predicted that the Redskins and the Giants, based off of my team breakdowns, they go 9-7. Can the Eagles beat that? The Philadelphia, based off of my standings, they lose a couple games against the division. You got to believe the Giants will come to play. The Washington Redskins are much retooled following the 3-13 debacle. Meanwhile, Robert thinks about the same way. 9-7 record for the Redskins. Will that be enough? We'll have to wait and see coming up next time.
All right, well, thank you, everyone, for listening. Without you fans, we wouldn't be here, be doing all these shows. And it's been great so far, and we're only 10 teams away from being done. And then we're going to LA for sports broadcast camp. And everyone, you got to turn in that week because me and Nick are going to be predicting, we're going to be talking about pretty much playoff contenders, the best quarterbacks, best running backs, best wide receivers, all of that coming up in less than 2 weeks. Something interesting to watch out for. Well, I'm going to end the show here, but tune in to the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick, and, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. This presentation presented by the National Sports on Spreaker.com. Make sure not to drink and drive, or don't drink at all, and have a great Wednesday night, ladies and gentlemen. Thursday, Make sure to tune back in coming up this weekend for more team breakdowns on the National Sports.